Congressman Engel, thank you for joining me. I am still in disbelief that Dick Cheney recorded that video and made that op-ed. What was your reaction to it?
Well, in New York, we have one word for it, and that's called chutzpah.
Yeah, I guess that's a word for it.
I guess that's unmitigated gall, I guess it would be the translation. You know, you said it right. I mean, the incursion into Iraq turned out to be the worst strategic blunder that we've made, in my opinion, since World War II. It was predicated on a lie, false information, and it took the lives of thousands of Americans, blood and money beyond belief. And so that Dick Cheney thinks he can now give advice or point fingers at this president just makes me scratch my head. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
Congressman, we know that the president is meeting with congressional leadership about the very issue of what to do in Iraq. And while there does not seem to be a good option, there seems to be some sort of consensus that something needs to be done. What do you think that thing is?
Well, I think that's what the president's trying to put together now, because there's really no easy choice here. You know, this is something that's very, very difficult. Some people have suggested that we make an alliance with Iran. I think that would be a foolish thing to do. Iran is making mischief in Syria. What's happening in Iraq is essentially a spillover of the civil war in Syria. And so I think that probably some action by the United States down the line to try to prevent ISIS from overrunning Iraq is warranted, but what that should be, I think we don't yet know. The reason why we have to disrupt ISIS, and I am of course not in favor of boots on the ground, it's because what happened in Afghanistan after the Russians were thrown out, we walked away and Afghanistan became a no man's land where Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups could plot attacks like September 11th on the United States. And if we would allow ISIS to keep swaths of Iraqi territory, they would be plotting all kinds of attacks against the United States, and we have to disrupt that. But the question is, you don't just go into a country and drop bombs. You don't just go in and willy-nilly do things. They have to be coordinated, and they have to make sense. I think the president is assessing what makes the most sense. I think he needs some time. I don't think he needs a lot of time, but the very people that are criticizing him for doing nothing would criticize him if he did something and say, no, that's not what should be done. Something else should or shouldn't be done. Congressman,
sorry to interrupt you, but you know, I think a lot of people gloss over the fact that when the president drew the red line on Syria, he then kicked it to Congress to make a decision, as Congress should and lawfully must, as to whether we were going to do anything in Syria, and Congress basically said no. There was a lot of sort of enthusiasm for doing something at that moment too. Do you think this time is different? Do you think that Congress will actually vote to do anything or support anything that the president would like to do in terms of intervention in Iraq?
Well, you know, in terms of Syria, there were a lot of us who believed that the president didn't have to come to Congress, that he had, from the War Powers Act, 60 days with which to act and then go to Congress. And I guess some would argue the same as well. So I think that's pretty much up in the air. But the reason why the president never really got the vote in terms of Syria was because, quite frankly, there was very little support on the Republican side. It almost, to me, seemed like a political thing, and then the Democrats were really divided. So I think this is a very, very touchy thing, but this is a spillover from what happened in Syria, and I think we cannot look the other way in Syria, and we can't look the other way in Iraq, so we've got to find out what's the most effective, and then it's got to be also the international community. This cannot just be the United States. The Middle East is a lot closer geographically to Europe. Our European allies have a stake in this too.
Congressman Engel, thank you for your time and thoughts.
Thank you.